Hello and welcome back to your beginner bagpipe lessons. This is lesson 7, I believe. So we've been working on this basic scale. We've been working on posture. We've been working on high hand scale, low hand scale, crossing, the crossover, how to identify a crossing noise, and we've been working on the very first embellishment, which is the G grace note. So you should be, by this point in the lessons, pretty comfortable with the G grace note scale and with the G grace note in general. You should also be very comfortable with the scale by itself. I'd say you should be able to play the skip note scale, and you should be ready to move on to your next embellishment. The next embellishment is the D grace note and the E grace note, and then we'll put the G grace note, the D grace note, and the E grace note all together to form our first combination of grace notes, which is called a GDE. So, the rules of D grace notes and E grace notes are the same as the G grace note. They need to be fast, they need to be clean and clear, so you need to raise your fingers up enough that they'll be audible. Raise your fingers up enough that they'll be heard without being crushed. You don't want to be playing a tune and then not be able to hear certain grace notes that are supposed to be there. So I'll go ahead and give you a close-up here of how it works.
Okay, so what we have here on the board is the D grace note, which is right there. It's a small little 30-second note on the D line. We're showing it dividing two A notes. So that's what we're going to be going over here.
Okay, so just like the G grace note, the D grace note is we're going to lift the D finger up off the chanter and then put it back down again very quickly. And on the board we were playing an A, 2 A's in a row. So I'm going to go ahead and play the note A, which is this one right here with the pinky up. We're going to be playing the note A, and we're going to be playing a fast D grace note. We can use that D grace note to separate two notes or to bridge between two notes, just like with the G grace note. So I'll go ahead and do a quick D grace note scale. We can only go up to a C with the D grace note, and I'll show you. So we're going to start on low G. So just like the G grace note, we're going to D quickly. We're lifting up the D finger as we're going to the next note and then putting it down after we're there. So let's go from A to B with a D grace note. So I'll do it in slow motion for you. Up to speed. Again, the low hand scale. Try to play with me.
Okay, now we're going to be playing the E grace note, which is the same principle as the G grace note and the D grace note. It's a fast 30-second note played by just raising the E finger, and we're going to be playing it dividing two A's as we did before.
Okay, so as I said, the E grace note is just you lift up the E finger and put it back down again. So we're going to use it to divide two notes that are the same note. So we'll play A and then an E grace note back to A again. So you want to be able to hear the E, and it needs to be fast,
but not so fast that you can't hear it, and not so long that it becomes its own note. It's just a little accent. So there's how you play it between two notes that are the same. Now let's do it as a scale, and it's the same principles as with the G grace note and the D grace notes. We'll start on low G. We can only go up to D, so we're going to be going to D with the E grace note. Okay, so we've learned the basic principles of the D grace note and the E grace note, and you learned the G grace note in lesson 6. So I'd like for you guys to work on those individual scales. And there's a cool thing that happens when we put those three things together. They're called the GDE. So we play them in that order, G, D, E. And we play them as a triplet. So as you can see on the board here, we have 3 A notes in a row. And they're divided by a G grace note, a D grace note, and an E grace note. So we play these. This is a fairly common movement that we play in order to establish a triplet rhythm. You'll find that they're very common throughout tunes. I'd say they're probably especially common in jigs in order to establish the triplet that is so prevalent in jigs. And I'll show you how that works. Okay, so we've learned the G grace note, the D grace note, and the E grace note. Now what I want you to do is I want you to try playing them in that order, holding the low A note. So you play a low A, and just play G, D, E. So we're playing G, D, E, G, D, E. When we play this, we can play these we can play this combination in everything from C down to low G. So we'll start at low G. So the G grace note is very important. It's played in every bagpipe tune. The D grace note is very important. It's played in a lot of bagpipe tunes. The E grace note is very important. It's played in a lot of bagpipe tunes. The GDE is very important. It's played in almost every jig. The thing about GDEs also is they can be played not only in the same note, but you can also alternate notes. You could play a G grace note on C, D grace note on B, and then an E grace note on A. So you could play or so you can practice when you're practicing at home. You can alternate playing that G, D, E or grace note order in any note combination you wish. You of course will have tunes that will specifically call out what order that needs to be, and that's part of the challenge of learning new tunes, is to establish that GDE order in the way that it's written in the tune. Here's an example of a GDE played in a jig called Paddy's Leather Breeches. I'll play the first part, and that way you'll be able to see the application of the GDE embellishment in a tune. Paddy's Leather Breeches.
So as you can see, GDEs are useful in tunes. So I was playing the GDE on B, and then I played a GDE that was started at C, and from C, and then ended up on low A. So there were two, if not more, I have to think about it, but there were two at least GDE combinations in that jig. GDE on B, and then a GDE with a C as the first note, and then two low A's as the D and the E grace note. So as you can see, as an example of some of the reasons why we need to practice the GDE. The other thing about GDEs we need to learn to do is to practice them dead even, because there are many jigs and tunes that require them to be played dead even. So playing them with a metronome is especially important, so you get that GDE, 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 GDE rhythm. Sometimes they're played dot cut, so it would be G, D, E, G, D, E, G, D, E. But those are all things that we'll need to work on as we go. But I want you guys to work on this week the D grace note scale, the E grace note scale, and then the GDEs played on low G, low A, B, and C. I will see you next week.